Good afternoon, everyone. This is yours truly, John Michael Ong Bersosa, and our topic for today in organization and management is still Chapter 6 leading. Today, our topic is about Module 16, which is communication and coordination. Let us start with our quote of the day from Marshall McLuhan way back in 2011. And according to him, all media of communications are cliches serving to enlarge man's scope of action, his patterns of associations and awareness. These media create environments that numb our powers of attention by sheer pervasiveness. So let us start with managing in the future. Actually, the future is now the changing technologies of organizations. So, of all things that are changing fast and significant in our field, in our world of work, communications must be very near at the top of that list, aside from the technologies that we utilize. So, when I first worked way back around 2010, 2011, uh, we're still not using the smartphones very much. Meron ng cellphone pero hindi pa ganun siya, 'di ba, ka-sophisticated. In the past, communications within and between organizational employees and customers was by face-to-face meetings. Lahat ng concerns, lahat ng messages is either face-to-face, landlines, posted letters, and faximile machines. Pati quotation, nagpa-fax pa. Or you have to call your supplier. Ganun din po sa client. Meron ng cellphone but not all clients have their own cell phone devices, right? Handheld devices at that time. So yung iba talaga by phone. But now it's all about digital communication such as email and other smartphone channels, yet it is also about human-to-human communications such as in meetings. And right now, the most prevalent type of communication is digital. We're using Zoom, MS Teams, Viber, ano pa? Google Meet, WhatsApp, etc., etc. Going forward, we have opportunities to maximize the effectiveness of communication using a mix of channels. So what is communication? I would like you to give me an idea of what is your personal definition of communication before I give you the definition itself. Okay? So communication is that process which information is exchanged and understood by two or more people. It takes two at the very least. Usually with one, the intent to influence or motivate behavior. So ibig sabihin, if communication is just one way, hindi po siya tinatawag na communication. It takes two to tango, so to speak. Surveys of managers show that they consider communication their most critical skill and one of their top responsibilities. This is from Berkman, 2002. So what are the elements of communication? So here you have the sender, the message, the channel, the receiver, effect, and the feedback. So what are the relationships of each element? So yung sender is the source of an idea or concept to be conveyed or delivered. Sa kanya nang galing yung idea na papadala niyang message. How about message? It is the tangible formulation of the idea that is sent to the receiver. One of my favorite analogy of this message is the usual I love you message. The sender will send the message I love you, whether via SMS or chat or PM. So the message is I love you itself, but the sender is the one who sent the message. And the channel, on the other hand, is the medium used by the sender for transmitting the message. What kind of channel? What kind of method? What kind of medium did he use? He or she use? Did that person use an owl? Did that person use a telegram? Whether the old school telegram or the telegram application? Did he or she use Viber, WhatsApp, or just a text or an email? And the receiver is the target audience. Who is going to receive that message, I love you, quote unquote? Is it the boss or the one the sender likes or adores, admires? And the effect, the intended outcome. The intended outcome or the result that the sender has in fine for transmitting the message. What will be the effect? Will that person like the message, that quote unquote I love you message? Or magkri-cringe ba siya? No? Matutuwa ba siya? Magagalit ba siya? Ma-awkwardan ba siya? Iiwasan ka ba niya? O sasagutin ka rin niya ng I love you too? No? And the feedback is the information about the effect. Probably, nag-reply siya ng I love you too. No? Or worst case scenario, that person, the receiver, decides to ignore the message altogether. No? Baga ghosted scene. No? Next, directing people. Workplace communication. Directing people, hindi masyado makita yung slide. Wait lang ha. Okay. So directing people, there are two elements. Wait. Okay. Okay. Let's wait for it. So you have here two types of directing people. You have the non-verbal and the verbal communication. Okay, it's ready. Okay. There you go. So for directing people, you have the verbal and non-verbal. So ano po ba yung pinagkaiba ng non-verbal sa verbal communications? Let's start with the non-verbals. Non-verbal communications refers to messages sent through human actions and behavior rather than through words. So let's say that you saw someone. Let's say I saw a beautiful woman. Kasama ko yung friend ko. So I can do something about it. I can approach her, I can smile at her, or I can tell my friend, "Hey, pare, may maganda doon." Or, of course, non-verbal, magkatinginan kami ng friend ko and we're both in mutual agreement that that person is beautiful. Yun po ang non-verbal. You don't need to communicate by words. Minsan, di ba? I saw someone. So what happens? Diba? Something like that. Or you saw a beautiful person in the bar or in the restaurant and you will like smile. Or when HR relays a message to you, you're not saying anything but you're frowning or you're not in a good mood. So it pertains to facial expressions, body movement. You might be saying yes, but your head is shaking. Yes, yes. No? Eye contact. Some people are saying that if you are averting your eyes, like you're talking instead of looking at that person in the eye, You're looking at the left or looking at the right. It means you're saying, according to studies, that you're lying, but maybe not all. Maybe some people are just a little bit awkward. And other subtle physical signs. And it reveals the hidden sentiments of human beings, such as anger, anxiety, joy, doubt, sadness, fear, and sarcasm. You think that that person is agreeing, but deep inside, ugh, you know, you're cringing deep inside. Verbal communications, on the other hand, is the ability of communication by using words. So let's say your boss is talking to you and you will reply, "Yes, boss, I will be submitting tomorrow." That is understood as verbal communication. And it pertains to both written and oral communication. So in the MBA program, they have this subject called business communication. And in the senior high, you have the subject oral communication, no? And also the practical research. So they are both forms of communications. So it reveals that managers need to be proficient in this skill. Managers must be proficient. It is not a bonus skill. It is a default skill. Kailangan meron si manager nito. Paano ka ba naging manager kung wala ka nitong communication skills na to? Verbal communications. Which helps both the receiver of the message. Mahirap kasi if you're a manager and you do not know how to communicate well. Maybe your subordinates might be understanding it differently. Hindi kayo nagkakaintindihan, nakala mo ito yung inuutos mo pero iba yung intindi ng tao. And this is where problems start to arise. I think communication is one of the key skills because if you do not know how to communicate, you will not be able to motivate. And if you do not know how to motivate, you will not be able to lead people. You will be able to transform the organization itself. So that's why both nonverbal and communications are equally significant to each other. So here are the workplace communication. So you have formal communication channels, the upward, the downward, and the horizontal communication. So what is the upward flow of communication? It includes messages that flow from the lower to the higher levels in the organization's hierarchy. So it supplies feedback on how well the organization is operating. The subordinates make use of upward communication to express their problems and performances to their superiors. Usually, it's used for the grievance. The subordinates also employ upward communication to inform how well they have understood the downward communication. So let's proceed to downward communication. So downward communication refers to messages sent from the top management down to subordinates. So upward is bottom top, whereas downward is top to bottom. So downward communication, simply put, is communication from superiors to subordinates in a chain of command. Mula sa itaas, pababa po siya. This communication flow is utilized by the managers to spread the work-related information to the employees at the lower levels. Employees need this information. So ang mga empleyado ang nangangailangan ng downward communication in order to be able to execute their jobs para magawa nila yung trabaho nila. And for meeting the expectations of their managers. Downward communication is employed by the managers for the following purposes. Supplying feedback about employees' performance. Kamusta naman yung performance mo, employee number 1? Detailing the job instructions, lahat ng detalye ng trabaho kung anong kailangan gawin para maintindihan po ng empleyado. So the employee should be able to understand. Next, number 3, offering a comprehensive understanding of the employee's job as well as to communicate them how their job is connected to the other jobs. Minsan hindi kasi naintindihan ng mga employees yun. What is the purpose of your job in relation to the jobs of the other employees? And number 4, communicating the organization's mission and vision to the employees. Communication leads to alignment. Remember vision, mission, and goals? Values. Yun po yun. No? Downward communication is used to relay, again, to remind the people in the organization, ano po ba yung vision natin? Ano po ba yung ating mission? Ano po ba yung values na dapat meron sa ating organization? And number 5, stressing the areas of attention or what is prioritized. So here, balik po tayo konti sa upward. So here, generally the managers dig up to identify about the employees' feelings. Ano po ba yung nararamdaman ng empleyado? Baka mamaya hindi po sila aligned. No? So upward and downward communication as well as the horizontal communication must be all aligned. Because upward communication directs to a more dedicated and faithful workforce. No? Pag hindi maganda yung upward communication mo, no? Let's say meron kang grievance, hindi ka pinakinggan, it will lead to dissatisfaction. Hindi sila natutuwa. Generally, managers dig up to identify about the employees' feelings on their jobs, their peers, supervisor, and organization. No? So, usually managers use upward communication to improve things. And last is horizontal or the lateral communication. So what is this? It is the lateral or diagonal exchange of messages among peers or co-workers and includes team communication. So the advantages of horizontal communication is that it is time saving and the synchronizing of the task is there, as well as collaboration among team members. It offers emotional and social support to the organizational members. When I was still working sa hotel, meron silang tinatawag na GC, na HOD or heads of department. So lahat ng concerns ng bawat department nalalaman ng buong organization. At least, at the very least, yung mga managers or supervisors. No? Hindi kasama yung mga employees doon. No? Sila-sila lang. So it aids in solving diverse organizational troubles. No? Doon kaagad nalalaman kung ano yung mga dapat i-troubleshoot na mga problema. No? Managers are troubleshooters, not troublemakers. It is a way of information sharing. Yun nga, no? Alam ng lahat. Hindi yung naiiwan ka sa dilim. No? You're not left alone in the dark. What's happening? You do not know. Everyone in the organization knows what is happening except you. No? So, ibig sabihin, wala ka sa circulation. No? You're not part of the system itself. And it can be employed for solving disagreements. Yun nga, no? Of a department with other departments. So that's why this group chat of HOD is utilized. Kung ano man yung problema ng isang department, maybe the heads of departments can help. They can lead to a solution. Yun po ang ating horizontal communication. So those are our 3 formal communication channels. So upward, downward, and horizontal. I'll show you the examples. So let's say upward is problems and exceptions. Yan po, no? Ano po ba yung mga problema? No? You have to relay it to the top. Suggestions for improvement, boss, baka pwedeng gawin natin itong ganitong technique. No? Or ganitong solution or plan. Grievances and disputes. No? Yesterday or a few days ago, I was riding sa bus. No? So nagre-report yung empleyado about his OT. No? But parang hindi akma siya dun sa sinubmit niyang payroll, no? Time card. The thing is, hindi lahat ng pinapasa natin ay na-approve. No? Hindi porket sinabi mo na nag-32 hours ka na OT, doesn't mean all 32 hours will be credited. Minsan chine-check nila, ano ba talagang ginawa mo in those 32 hours of overtime? As per his claim. No? He's claiming he worked 32 hours of overtime. Really? We have to check. We need evidence. No, hindi po pwedeng, oh, ganun ba? O sige, 32 hours para hindi ka na lumayas sa amin, we'll approve it. No, you have to check it. Or, halimbawa, nagsunto kayong dalawang empleyado, no? Both of them will tell their grievance and disputes to the HR. Financial and accounting information, as already mentioned, no? Communication is one of the keys because accounting is the language of business. And last is performance reports, among many others. No? Boss, nagawa ko na yung mga kailangan niyo paggawa. Ito po. I was able to finish it on time. Na-turn over ko sa client. Ganitong araw. The client is satisfied. He or she is going to pay the final payment. Etc. 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 Downward communication. Oh, meron pa. Exit interviews. Huh? So let's say you're going to leave the company, the organization. For whatever reasons, they will have an exit interview. Bakit ka aalis? Why are you going to lead the organization? You can be honest. I found better working opportunities. Or I have to go overseas. I'm going to work at Dubai. I'm going to work at Singapore. I'm going to work at Canada. I'm going to uproot the entire family. Doon na kami titira sa Australia. Regardless, it's just a way for you to relay your message to the top. Whether it's for wala naman personal, no? Talagang it just happens that my family has decided that we going to migrate to Australia or Saudi, di ba? Wala namang ano yun eh. But if you have ill feelings, no? Bad feelings about your superiors, no? You can also tell it because anong gagawin nila sa'yo? Sisibakin ka nila. You already resigned, so you can just tell them, honestly, what is it? Ano ba yung problem? Ito na naman tayo sa problems and exemptions. Downward communication is going down naman. So implementation of goals and strategies. Ano po ba yan? What are the goals of the organization? What are the strategies that must be done? Which will be relayed by the top managers, to the middle managers, to the supervisors, and down to the rank and file employees. Job instructions. Ito yung pinaka-importante. Dito lagi nagkakatalo-talo. Job instructions. Maybe you're saying something, but the employee understands it a little bit different. So dapat yung upward and downward may alignment. Usually dapat tatanungin mo, let's say, sinabi ko, kailangan mabuhusan yan. Yung slab na yan. Ito na yung unahin yung lagyan ng mga bakal. Latagan nyo na ng bakal yan. Talian nyo. Kasi meron mga empleyado, hindi empleyado, mga construction worker na medyo pilosopo, kasi foreman, medyo, minsan may toyo, di ba? Sabihin niya, engineer, sabi mo, latagan lang ng bakal, hindi naman talian eh. Lagyan ng ties, ibig sabihin. Or, lagyan ng concrete spacer. Patay kang bata ka. Naka-expose yung bakal mo pag nagbuhos. So, kailangan, even if they know already the procedure, you must still instruct them. And also the rationale. Bakit ko pinapagawa to? Usually you do not have to say it, but not all jobs are like that. Meron talagang kailangan ipaliwanag mo. Particularly sa production. Bakit kailangan natin habulin yung quota? Kasi magigipit tayo. Ang taas-taas ng demand, pero wala pa tayo sa 60% ng supply na nagagawa. Or bakit kailangan unahin to? Kasi minsan sa construction, sorry for the but this is my frame of reference. Sa construction, hinahabol ng kliyente yung isang building, pero yung focus ni foreman doon sa pundasyon kasi doon malaki pera. But in reality, unahin mo muna yung kailangan ng kliyente. So as engineers, as communicators, you should be able to communicate it. You should be good at downward communication. Kasi actually, not just the construction jobs, but all jobs need all three. Upward, downward, and horizontal. Nagkataon lang na pag nasa projects ka, you should be able to utilize all three of them. All at the same time. Mahirap yung lagay mo, nasa gitna ka eh. Nasa gitna ka ng mataas, nasa gitna ka ng mababa, nasa gitna ka ng lahat. Procedures and practices, yun nga. No? Hindi lahat ng tao same procedure sinusunod. So there must be a uniformity of the procedures and practices in the organization, and that shall be done through downward communication. No? Whether you are a new recruit, you new employee, or kahit veteran ka na, no, nanggaling ka lang sa ibang organization, you should still be acclimated to the culture of the organization. No? Even if you are the best employee, ganito ang practice namin. No? Please follow as much as possible. So, what can you do about it? Performance feedback. So, you students, meron kayong performance task. Nandun yung feedback ng teacher usually. Okay na tong ginawa nyo, meron lang konting kulang. No? But in senior high, medyo hindi tayo ganun ka strict. No? To be honest, I'm a bit generous in giving grades. But kung, let's say, empleyado ko kayo, talagang kailangan meron kayong naka-reading timba, no? Sa sabon tsaka banlaw ang matitikman nyo sa akin for the performance feedback. No? Kasi it's reality. No? Hindi po biro yung performance feedback. Why? Because if your performance is not good, then damay-damay po yan. No? Hindi naman po ako yung tinatamaan eh. Pag bad yung performance ko, yung organization itself. No? That's why performance feedback is crucial. And last is indoctrination. No? We already mentioned it at around, I think, module 11 or 12. No? So it's downward communication to the employee. Oh, ganito kami, nandito yung facilities namin, ito yung ganitong department, etc. etc. For horizontal, you have the intra-departmental problem solving. Ngayon, no, prevalency, IATF. Interagency Task Force for the COVID-19. Is it effective? We don't know now. I think it is. Pero wala namang perfect system. There's still room for improvement. Constant room for improvement. Ganon din po sa organization. No? Hindi porket marketing department ka, marketing lang ang problema mo. You still have to, again, audi alteram partem. Understand the other side. No? Gusto mo makasales ng 100 million. Hindi naman pala kaya ng operations. Yung quota, no? Hindi nila kaya yung production. Or kulang sa pera si accounting. No? Kulang sa budget. Paano mo magagawa yung marketing campaigns mo? Diba? So you have to meet at least yung mga heads of department. Ano ba yung mga problema? Magkaroon kayo ng you have to meet halfway. No? Magkakasundo kayo. Ganun din, no? Coordination. No? Ito mahirap to. We will discuss later. Intradepartmental coordination. So kailangan coordinated kayo. Imagine the body if it's not coordinated. No? That is the organization. Your body, let's say, is an organization. Gustong kumilos pa kaliwa, pero nung actual napunta sa kanan yung katawan mo, no? Or the organization. This is not easy. Very tricky, but pag nasanay ka naman, no problem. And change initiatives. Change is another topic for next module. You have to communicate and coordinate the changes that must be accomplished. Hindi po biro yan. And next, you have the personal communication channels. You have personal networking. So what is personal networking? It is the acquisition and cultivation of personal relationships that cross departmental, hierarchical, and even organizational boundaries. Ikaw mismo, no? People who have more contacts have greater influence in the organization and get more accomplished. Hindi po tayo mga katakas, no? We're all politicians, so to speak. Hindi mo pwede sabihin, well, hindi naman ako nasa politika eh, empleyado ako. Yes, but you still need to have contacts. No? Kahit wala ka na doon sa organization na yon, you're still up to date. No? Ako, matagal na ako wala doon sa pinasukan ko, but I'm still up to date. Ano na nangyari kay boss? Ano na nangyari kay madam? Kamusta na yung mga kasama ko sa trabaho? Nandun pa rin ba sila? Bakit sila umalis? And so forth. Ano na ba nangyayari dyan? Okay pa rin ba? O are the people in the organization no longer satisfied? You don't need to be friends with them, pero at least meron kang communication. no? Personal communication or personal networking. Grapevine, an informal person-to-person communication network that is not officially sanctioned by the organization. Ito yung parang lumalabas na parang barkada ng organization, yung click. No? It links the employees in all direction, ranging from the CEO through middle management, support staff, and the line employees. No? It's like the informal group chat ng organization. So hanggat hindi ka nagle-left the group, you're part of the grapevine. Unless nag-resign ka na, you do not want to hear any more about the procedures, then that's okay. Pero habang part ka ng organisasyon, especially do sa ganung trabaho, you need to be part of the grapevine. And written communication is becoming increasingly important. The problem is, hindi po lahat ng tao ni-utilize yung written communication. The need to write clearly, no? For business, no, and especially sa academe, yung wrong spelling, no, yung grammar, it irks. It's an irritant pag mali po yung spelling natin. And especially yung grammar, no, yung mga tipong masasakit sa ulo. Huwag po kayo maglalagay ng mga lodi sa column sa mga business emails. Be normal, formal English or Tagalog at the very least. The need to write clearly and quickly has never been more important in today's highly competitive, technology-driven global economy. Meron naman po mga default email types dyan. No? Nandiyan naman po si Google, mag-check kayo dyan, pwede kayo mag-download ng sample letter. No? To me, no? Kagaya ko, I was a project coordinator. Wala naman po akong legal background, but bit by bit, I was able to learn. No? Basa konting law books. You don't need to read everything, but at least marunong kang gumawa ng mga legal letters. Of course, do sa work. Do sa job description ko, I need to. It's a combination of technical, legal, and even mathematical. Yeah. It's never been more important in today's highly competitive, technology-driven global economy. And the 7 C's of effective communications. Ano po ba yung 7 C's na yan? Now, these are 7 C's of effective communication which are appropriate to both written and as well as oral communication. These are as follows. So you have completeness, conciseness, consideration, clarity, concreteness, courtesy, and correctness. So what are the differences between all these 7? So first, let's go with completeness. Ano po ba yung completeness? It must be comprehensive. Nandun na nga yung word eh. Kompleto, complete. Or complete ito, kung gusto nyo. Combination of Tagalog and English. It must express all facts needed by the audience. Nandun lahat. Hindi yung kulang sa sahog. Or you left out some details. Kailangan kompleto, kaya nga po completeness. It must be comprehensive. The sender of the message should take into account the receiver's frame of mind. Again, audi alteram partem, listen to the other side. Kailangan, kung ano yung kailangan ni client, ibigay mo as much as possible. Unless it's yung parang trade secret, no? Yan. A comprehensive communication has the following features. Again, letter A, complete communication builds up and boosts standing of the organization. Letter B, cost saving as no vital information is lost. Nandun na lahat eh. Kompleto recados. So hindi na yung uulit ka na naman, magsasayang ka na naman ng 10 minutes ng buhay mo para gumawa ng another letter or to communicate yung mga kulang mo last time. No extra cost is acquired in passing on additional message if the communication is complete. Hindi na masasayang yung buhay mo. Isipin mo, ang minessage mo lang or kinommunicate mo lang is part A. Kulang. Magpa-part B ka na naman, part C. Di ba? Mabuti yung isang bagsakan na. Kompleto. Then, pagbitin yung client, they can just have another additional query. But at least you gave it all. Letter C, complete communication constantly supplies added information whenever necessary. Nandun na lahat. It leaves no questions to the brain of receiver. Parang, ayan na, kompleto na yung detalye, tumahimik ka na lang. Diba? Parang, it's a bit sarcastic, yung ganung statement. But that's it, no? And letter D, complete communications facilitates and improve decision making. Kompleto yung detalye, of course, yung decision making mo kompleto rin. Halimbawa, nagbigay ka ng information about the item. Let's say, kotse na lang, kotse. Nandun lahat ng data, specifications, kailan yung dating, ano yung available na kulay, saan yung mga branches ng ano natin, di ba? Car showroom. Tapos wala yung presyo. Wala yung mga loans, monthly amortizations. Di ba? Kakainis yun. Tatawag na naman, magsasayang na naman ng oras yung customer. No? Masasayang din yung oras mo. Kasi magre-relay ka na naman, magkano presyo, kanino magre-relay yung mga loans. Di ba? Hindi ka na, as a sales agent, hindi naman ikaw ang in charge sa loans. No? So yun, masasayang oras yung pareho. Paano kung nainis yung client? Hindi na ako bibili sa ganitong brand dito na sa kabila. Nandito na yung presyo eh. Okay na sa akin tong ganitong presyo. It's a shame. And it convinces the audience. Diba? Kompleto na eh. No? Pag kulang, bitin. No? Sabi ng audience, ay bitin. Bakit ganoon? Diba? That is completeness. Conciseness, on the other hand, refers to wordiness, like communicating what one desires to transmit in least possible words without missing the other C's. No? Conciseness is a requisite for effective communication. Nandun na po lahat ng kailangan mo sabihin, pero hindi naman yung super haba. Minsan kasi, I admit that I'm slightly guilty with this. Mahaba yung communication skills ko. Pag gumawa ko ng letter, talagang, di ba? 1 or 2 pages. Of course, not everyone has the time, no? And the patience and the effort to read the entire letter. No? Kailangan, flexi lang, kompleto na lahat. Diba? It's much easier. So sa conciseness, it has the following features. First, it is both time saving and cost saving. Diba? Hindi sayang yung oras mo gumawa ng mahabang speech, no? Or pitch, or letter. But it's also cost saving. Hindi ganun katagal. Diba? On both of your time and resources. Letter V, it emphasizes and stresses the important message. No? Doon ka lang sa mga main points. No? Bullet points lang po. As it prevents making use of too much or pointless words. Minsan kasi pag masyadong mahaba rin yung communication mo, nagsasara yung tainga ng kausap mo. No? So just focus on the more important points. No? So it must be complete but still concise. Concise communications offer brief and important message. Brief, maiksi lang pero importante yung mensahe na binibigay mo. Hindi po yung puro kiyaw-kiyaw. No? Hindi po puro palabok, no? Sabi nga nila. Concise message is extra attractive. Minsan, less is more. Diba? Sabi ng mga ibang philosophers. No? And non-repetitive in character. Hindi po paulit-ulit. Consideration. What is consideration? Placing oneself into the shoes of others. Kung halimbawa, ikaw yung nagre-relay ng message, kung ikaw yung makikinig naman ng message, kung ikaw naman yung receiver, can you tolerate the message? Or kalahati pa lang masakit na yung ulo mo? Diba? Effective communication must take the audience into concern. You must understand your audience. No? Kami mga teachers, ganun yung problem din namin. No? We have, let's say, 1.5 or 2 hours of lecture. Kakayanin ba ng estudyante yung 2 hours na yun, no? Of sheer torture lecture? Of course not. No? Palit naman. Ako naman kunwari estudyante because I'm also a student. Can I bear that 2-hour long lecture? Masakit sa ulo? Of course not. No? So you must utilize the 2 hours to make the important points shine through. No? Yun po yung synchronous. Yung asynchronous na lang natin yung mga additional learnings. Kaya nga yun dito sa ating slide, pinakita ko lang yung mga words. No? Yung 7 C's. But I did not describe each already. I'll just tell you. No? So complete, concise, consideration. Clarity. Diba? Malinaw. No? Sa Tagalog, no? Clarity, klaro. Or clarity means accentuating on a specific message. Ano ba yung message na pinaparating mo sa receiver? Or goal at a time rather than accomplishing too much at a time. No? So dito, no, you have to play the perfect balance between complete and short. No? Kompleto pero maigsi. Diba? Clarity in communication has the following features. It makes understanding easier. Mas madaling maintindihan. Diba? Pag malinaw, madaling maintindihan. Madali yung utos mo, pumunta ka sa kanto, bumili ka sa tindahan, tapos ang kwento. Diba? Bilhin mo yung toyo. Yan lang. You don't need to, sumakay ka ganito, pumunta ka sa ganyan po. Minsan, the simplicity of the message itself is much easier to understand. Complete clarity of thoughts. Dapat yung message mo malinaw. No? Yung iniisip mo at yung mga ideya mo. No? It improves the sense of the message. No? Pag malinaw yung utos mo, yung message mo, it's much easier to understand. No? Gumaganda yung detalye, nag-i-improve pa yung detalye ng message. And last, accurate, suitable, and real world words. No? Hindi naman po kailangan yung super duper, di ba? Isipin mo yung mga tao ko, kunwari, they are construction workers. Kakausapin ko ng straight English ng 3 oras. Buti kung buhay pa ako after ng 3 hours na yun. Di ba? You need to talk in simpler terms. Unless you're talking to your fellow academe, you're talking to your superiors, your bosses, sure. Di ba? Kung gusto mo magpasikat, but hindi naman kailangan eh. Pang ano lang yan eh. Borloloy na lang yun eh. Kung super ganda ng English mo. Basta yung message mo is complete, concise, consideration, no? And clear. Okay na po yun. Correctness. No? Ito yung masakit. No? Concrete communication means being specific. No? Specific and accurate. And apparent rather than unclear and broad. No? Nandun na kagad lahat. Correctness reinforces the confidence. Konkreto, matigas. Sabi nga nila. No? Specific. Direct to the point. Ito yun. Ito yung message ko. Diba? So the concrete message has the following features. It is backed up with precise facts and figures, especially, diba, kung academe ka, andun lahat ng mga figures, no? Facts. Ito, according to ganitong study, ito yung sinabi nila. Diba? Andun na lahat ang message mo. It uses words that are understandable and that build the character. Again, madaling maintindihan. And concrete messages are not misconstrued. Hindi yung pag binasa mo yung message, nagkakaroon pa ng misunderstanding eh. Lalong lumalala. Dapat nga maintindihan yung message mo eh. So ito yung nagiging problem natin ngayon. No? Dapat concrete yung message mo. Number 6, courtesy. Courtesy in message means that the message must illustrate the sender's expression as well as the value of the receiver. No? Value the receiver. So ibig sabihin, you are considerate to both you and the receiver. Naiintindihan mo. Again, understand na naman. You must understand both points. Kung ikaw ay isang receiver or kung ikaw mismo yung sender. The sender of message should be genuinely polite, sensible, insightful, and enthusiastic. Hindi naman po yung sobrang taray dating ng message or yung tipong parang demand letter na yung dating ng message mo, no? Courteous messages has the following features. No? Courtesy means taking into reflection both perspectives, no? Yun nga, no, sa law, audi alteram partem. Ibig sabihin, hear the other side. Hindi lang yung puro yung side mo as sender. Kailangan naintindihan mo rin yung kabilang kampo, yung receiver. Taking into reflection both perspectives in addition to the feelings. Na pag binasa niya yun, binasa ni receiver, ano yung mangyayari? Ano magiging pakiramdam ni receiver? Matutuwa ba siya? No? Or magngingit-ngit sa galit pagkatapos? Courteous message is optimistic and centered at the audience. Focus mo no is the client or the receiver. The customer is always right, especially kung ikaw yung nasa business side. Uses displaying respect. Huh? Kailangan meron kang respeto. Kaya nga po courtesy. No? Yung mga bashers sa mga Facebook posts, no? Whether they like the president or not. Tingin ko pag na-meet nila ng one-on-one yan, yuyukurin sila eh. Hindi mo rin, no, matatawag mo ba yung president, let's say, ng kung ano man yung bad words sa ginagamit mo sa social media, pagkaharap mo na siya face to face, baka sasabihin mo pa lang yun, hindi ko alam kung ano mangyayari sa'yo, no? So you must be very courteous. No? Call it whatever you want. No? You might call yourself plastic or hypocrite, but you must be courteous. No? Magpakatao ka naman. And it is not at all prejudice. Wala pong prejudice. No? Hindi po kayo nang mamata ng receiver. And last but not the least is correctness. Ano po ba yung correctness? Alam na po, no? Ito yon. Ito yung nirereklamo ko kanina. There should be no grammatical flow. No? Flaw. No? Sorry for the Freudian slip. Communication flaw, not communication flow. No? So there are no grammatical flaws in communication. Ibig sabihin, wala pong sablay. No? Especially kung written. No? Kasi yung oral, mapapalampas mo, baka nagkamali lang ng buka ng bibig. No? Minsan, nasasalit yung O tsaka U. No? But sa letter kasi walang lusot eh. So pag mali yung spelling mo, dun kaagad nakatutok yung magbabasa ng message. Ay, hindi nag-check. Hindi gumamit ng Grammarly. Ay, tagal-tagal lang nagtatrabaho nito, hindi pa marunong ng normal, simple English. Diba? Correct communication has the following features. The message must be accurate, truthful, and timely. Huh? If the communication is accurate, it heightens the confidence level. Kung tama yung message mo, no, lalo sila nagkakaroon ng kumpiyansa sa iyo. Correct message has better workforce, no? Has better force, sorry, on the audience or the readers. Mas maganda yung tinatawag nilang audience impact. Uy, maganda yung pitch mo. Uy, maganda yung ano mo na sa akin, no? Yung letter mo sa akin. Well, why not, no? Baka bumili ako sa iyo. Or I might support your company. I might invest in your company. Diba? Kung ano man yun. Message na nire-relay mo sa receiver. It verifies the exactness and correctness of facts and figures used in the message. Verification. No? Pag naglagay ka dyan ng, we are growing at 18%, sige nga, check nga natin, 18% CAGR ka ba taon-taon o baka naman 8% ka lang? Or worse, 1% ka lang. No? So, lalo na no, pag written, mahuhuli ka eh. Yung sabi mo, 18% ang growth mo kada year, check nga natin yung financial statements mo, baka naman joke time lang yan, di ba? And it uses fitting and right words. Kaya nga po correct. Di ba? So, dapat tama po yung mga wordings natin. So, if you're aware of these 7 C's, no, it makes one an effective communicator. Of course, wala pong perfect communicator. No? We all have our communication flaws, but try to minimize them and utilize this 7 C's para maging better. Not just student kayo, no? But also a better person. No? Ayan. So, nag-highlight pa sila. Next, barriers to communication. Meron din barrier. Physical and personal. So, punta muna tayo sa physical. Physical barriers are the elements in the environment that impede the communication process. And personal barriers are elements that prevent the transmission of the message due to the person's moods, emotions, and personal background. So, magpakita nga tayo ng mga example. Let's say personal barriers to communication is perceptual and language differences. So pag perceptual and language differences, siguro hindi po akma yung language na ginagamit mo. No? Siguro, let's say, nasa doctorate degree ka, tapos yung kausap mo, I mean, hindi naman po tayo nagpa-prejudice, no? Or nagdi-discriminate. Hindi po ganun kataas yung kanya na pag-aralan. So, ba't mo pahihirapan yung taong hindi naman ganun kataas yung pinag-aralan? No? Perception is generally how each individual interpret the words around him. The world, no? Shall I say? No? Parang langit ka, lupa ako. Di ba? All generally want to receive messages which are significant to them. So, ibig sabihin yung kausap mo, pag kung anong gusto lang niya maintindihan ng message, yun lang po yung pakikinggan niya. No? A same event may be taken differently by different individuals. Linguistic differences also. No? So, I remember sometime, no, nakikipag-usap ako sa aking boss, no? Chinese. No? So, sabi ko, laylay kiki. No? Tapos nagulat na lang ako, sinampal ako. Sinampal ako ng kasama ko na babae. Ano yun? No? Ako hindi. Nag-uusap kami ni boss. Ano ba iniisip mo? Yun, yung mismo? No? Si Legend Kilo? Yun na ba kagad yun? No. No? Ibig sabihin, come and go. Diba? Ay, ko yan, no? Kausap ko si boss. Pinakita ko yung message. Ay, sorry. Akala kasi. Huwag ka kasi kagad babanat ng kamay. Masyadong malikot yung kanang kamay mo na nanampalagan. No? So those are perceptual and language differences. So same word may suggest different meaning to different individuals. No? Yeah. So example natin si Laylay Kiki. No? Not the same phonetics. No? Hindi naman yung katulad ng sa Tagalog or Filipino, di ba? Or another is yung libang, no? Maglibang. Sa atin, pag maglilibang, di ba? Mamamasyal tayo, magba-basketball, mag-ML. Pero pag sa Bisaya, no, sa Cebuano, some of them are offended or they get the inside joke, no? Yeah. Because for them, maglibang is defecation. Next is information overload. So managers are surrounded with a pool of information. So it is essential to control this information flow or else the information is likely to be misinterpreted. Kasi sobrang daming information na babal yun ng mga empleyado. No? Hindi nakakayanin ng brain cells. As a result, communication tends to be less effective. So sa 2 hours na lesson, di ba? Ang sakit sa ulo niyan pag binigay ko lahat ng information of 16 modules. Kunwari na lang of SOAR, MGT, or ORGMAN. Panis ang brain cells, di ba? So we're taking it one module at a time, at the very least. Inattention. At times people just not listen. Kahit anong galing mo mag-speech, kahit na captivated mo yung audience, no? Meron at merong isang tao dyan na merong hindi natin maintindihan, no? May pinagdadaanan ba? Or maybe it's just too much for him or her, no? It might be related to information overload. For example, a traveler may pay attention to one no parking sign. Nakita mo na yung no parking, nagpark ka pa rin doon mismo sa sign na yun. Inattention. Di ba? O di kayo, bawal umihi dito, tapos doon ka mismo sa sign umihi. Anong tawag sa'yo doon? Di ba? So, minsan yung mga tao, pag isa lang yung sign, no, let's say no parking, nagigets na nila kagad. Pero pag tinagtaran mo yung kalsada ng no parking, baka lalo lang maumay, no? Yung tao. Thus, repetitive messages should be ignored for effective communication. Equally, if a superior is immersed in his paperwork and his subordinate gives details, no, yun naman, no? Yung upward communication mo. So, busy si boss mo, busy si manager, nagkwento ka, tapos, ano ulit yun? Sorry yan. Busy ako eh. Di ba? Uulit na naman. Sayang yung time. The superior may not get what he is articulating. Kasi, yung focus mo na, one is typing perhaps, no? Or may webinar siyang inatenan, who knows? And the other is listening to you. No? So for me, there's really no such thing as multitasking kasi you might understand just part of the message being imparted or being relayed. but not the full message itself. Time pressures. Often in organizations, the targets have to be achieved within a specific time frame. No? Lalo na sa projects, kailangan tapusin mo yan within ganitong buwan. Patay ka, bata ka. Diba? The failure of which has unfavorable consequences. Sa mga estudyante, no, pag hindi nakapagpasa, worst case scenario na yung bagsak. No? As I already mentioned. Pero sa amin, no, lalo na sa project, sa construction, pag hindi mo pinasa yan, makakatikim ka ng katakot-takot na mura. No? It's usually in the form of Papa India. Diba? Papa India ka, tagal-tagal na yan, hindi mo pa natatapos. Hindi ka naman makareply. Diba? Ano, ipapapa India mo rin yung boss mo? Papa India mo rin si client? Ewan ko lang, no? Baka kinabukasan, nakabigtigan ka na dyan sa labas ng job site. No? The failure of which has unfavorable consequences. In a haste to beat deadlines, the formal channels of communication are reduced. No? Parang nagkakalabuan na. Or messages are incompletely given. Thus, ample time should be granted for effective communication. No? So minsan, yung time medyo nakakaano rin yan. No? It's a constraint. Cannot really avoid it. But siguro, you must have a one-time leeway. No? Let's say, kailangan ko yung bakal. Hindi yung ora-orada order ako ng bakal, kailangan ko bukas. Hindi po ganon ang supply chain. Kailangan meron kang 1 week, 1 month sa construction, no? But on restaurants, at least 1 week. Grace period. Order ako for 1 week from now, kailangan makarating yung ating mga shellfish, yung ating mga meats. Or 1 month order ako ng mga D12, no? Yabe tubo, fusion machine, PP pipe, 12 mm diameter rebar, and so on and so forth. Hindi yung next week, mamumukpok ka sa job site, hindi mo makakarating. Kahit anong galing ng purchaser mo, hindi basta-basta makakarating yan kasi yung logistics yung kalaban natin. Those are time pressures. Distractions or noise, alam na po natin lahat yan. No? A while ago, I was talking and then merong bumubusina na maingay, di ba? That's noise. Communication is also influenced too by a lot of noise or distractions. Physical distractions such as poor lightings. Imagine nyo, no, nagsasalita ako tapos nasa dilim ako, di ba? Uncomfortable sitting. Minsan yung pag-upo mo, it's already an irritant. No? Hindi ka komportable sa sitting position mo. In sanitary room, di ba? Let's say, nasa classroom ka tapos ang baho. Di ba? Baka may patay na daga. It bothers us. All affect communications in a meeting. Or let's say, nagmi-meeting, no, biglang may natapon na kape. Di nawala lahat yung ano ng tao. Yung focus ng tao instead na nakatingin do sa, di ba, sa projector. Yung face-to-face pa. Wala. Di ba? In the same manner, the use of loudspeakers obstruct communication. Pag masyado naman malakas, no? Ano na rin, masakit din sa tenga. Emotions. Emotional state at a particular point of time also influences communication. No? One time, I attended a seminar, no? Tapos, naka-receive siya ng text, no? Yung speaker, na namatay yung kanyang parents, yung kanyang father. No? Hindi ko alam kung paano niya nagawa. No? Nakapaggawa siya ng magandang talk. No? Pero, deep inside, makikita mo no, yung anguish niya. No? Especially lalaki siya, di ba? I mean, guys rarely display their emotions, especially yung mga pag-iyak, di ba? But you can see in this, di ba? Kung pwede lang, lumipad siya papunta doon sa ospital or sa morgue. But he is professional enough. No? But not all people can be like that. No? If the receiver senses that the communication is fuming, the communicator is fuming, no? Let's say, galit na galit yung communicator. He construes that information being signaled as very bad. So nagsasalita ka, galit ka. Diba? Parang ano yung epekto sa estudyante? Diba? Like, galit na si sir. Alis na tayo. O, huwag na nating kibuin. Di ba? Parang ganun. While he takes it in a different way, the communicator is cheerful and jovial. No? Not all communicators are like that. Not all teachers are like that style. No? Iba-iba po ng style ng mga teacher. Kanya-kanya po silang diskarte. So meron iba talaga na masayahin, yung iba naman formal. No? I guess I'm one of those na nasa point of formal to medyo galit, no? Minsan. Sounds like. So, yung personal communication, doon ako medyo makulit lang. So, iba-iba po. No? Huwag niyo pong kumparahin yung mga professors ninyo. In that case, the message is construed to be fine and fascinating. So, minsan pag masayahin si prof, no, parang iniisip ng mas estudyante, ay, maganda yung subject. Diba? Madali yung subject. Enjoy na enjoy si prof mag-discuss. Ganun po. No? Even sa mga meeting, no, minsan, you still need the part of humor. No? Minsan si boss, lolokohin pa kami, no? Oh, kape ko, kape, oh, lagi kong inaantok ko. Diba? Tatawa yung mga tao. No? Maybe at your expense, pero it gets the meeting to a light-hearted level. Na parang nagre-relax sila. No? And complexity in an organizational structure. Sorry for that space constraint. More number of managerial levels means more chances of communication getting destroyed. No, minsan nadadilute yung communication mo. Okay lang yung 3 levels. No? When I was working sa corporate, there are only 3 levels of organization. Ako, si project manager, si boss. No? Tapos ang kwento. When I was working as coordinator, project coordinator, ako, tsaka si boss. Dalawa lang kami, technically. Di ba? So, walang problema, direkta. But imagine if I'm working on a company or an organization na may 6 levels of hierarchy, baka yung 50 words ko pagdating sa taas, 2 words na lang. Di ba? So, yun. Only the people at the top level can observe the overall picture while the people at the lower level just have the knowledge in their own area. No, correct po yun. No? So, one tip for the students, if you're going to work someday, do not try to work at a big company right away. Magtrabaho ka muna doon sa mga small or medium companies because you learn a lot more. No? Kasi if you're working at a big company, let's say sa construction, no? If you work at DMCI or EI, parang compartmentalize. Ito lang yung papel mo, rebar engineer ka lang, tapos na kwento. No? Or sa office, documentation lang gagawin mo. Araw-araw ginawa ng Diyos, documentation. Pag ano ka, purchaser ka, purchase lang ng purchase. Wala na. No? But kami, no, nung I was project coordinator, hindi lang po project coordination ang hawak ko. I'm handling logistics, I'm handling operations, I'm handling estimates, I'm handling contracts and obligations. No, hindi naman po ako nagmamayabang, but you get the gist. I also get to learn to communicate more effectively. Kasi, to be honest, at one point, I was really an introvert. No? Medyo awkward po ako magsalita, but wala akong choice eh. I'm the project coordinator. So I must communicate and coordinate. So meron po akong hugot sa topic na to. No? And imagine talking to the boss every day. Yung boss mismo, na company owner, the company president. Hindi yung boss mo na parang in-appoint lang ni Henry C. Di ba? Imagine working at SM. Siguro, bihira mo lang naman makita si Hansi, si Joan C. Cotio. No? Siguro sa mga empleyado ng buhay pa si Henry C. mismo, they never really get to speak one-on-one with the big boss himself. No? Ang layo. No? Parang nasa langit sila, pero ikaw nasa lupa. No? So try to work in a smaller organization. You will learn a lot more. Now, kung gusto mong lumipat sa bigger organization, sure, why not? Di ba? And last is poor retention. Human memory cannot function beyond a limit. Kaya nga po ang mga discussion natin is usually 1.5 hours lang. No? 1 hour, 2 hours, medyo pushing na nga rin po yung 2 hours. One can't always retain what is being told, especially if he is not paying attention or not attentive. No, I think one of the great benefits ng ating online, no, pag hindi mo naintindihan habang nakikinig ka ng live, you can just listen, no, later. Hindi ko naintindihan nung nagle-lesson si sir, baka panoorin ko ulit. But in the past, nung wala pa yung mga record na yan, no, pag hindi mo naintindihan yung lesson ni prof, galunggong na, no? Uwian na. Sorry ka na lang, no? So note taking ang key dati. But now you can just rewatch and rewatch and rewatch. Pag hindi mo naintindihan, you can still watch on other videos or you can just ask your classmates. Ganon din po sa work, no? Yan po yung nagiging problema pag masyado pong detalyado yung mga utos, no? We have to resort to writing reminders. These are my submittals for the week. Must be my accomplishments. Kailangan ipasa ko kay boss within the day. Kailangan ma-estimate ko yung ganito. Kailangan magawa ko yung ganyan. Ha? Pinapaliguan ko ba kayo ng information overload? Probably yes. But that is the nature, no, sa mga barriers to communication. So overcoming barriers to communication. So eliminating the differences in perception, use of simple language, reduction of and elimination of noise levels, active listening, emotional state, simple organizational structure, avoid informational overload, give constructive feedback, proper media choice, and flexibility in meeting the targets. I'll just focus on some of these, no? Kasi iba medyo, ano na yun eh, given na po. So eliminating differences in perception, the organization should ensure that it is recruiting the right individuals of the job. Dapat ma-minimize mo yung barriers. No? Let's say lahat kayo ay architects. As much as possible, you can hire an architect or an engineer. Diba? Mahirap pong maglagay ng doktor sa isang construction firm. Or baliktad naman, no? Nasa ano ka, no? Nasa hospital ka tapos kukunin mong director ng hospital is an engineer. Diba? So, much easier. It is the responsibility of the interviewer, in this case HR, to ensure that the interviewee should have command over the written and spoken language. Kasi iba-iba po, no? Iba po yung English ng construction, no? Technical language. Iba po yung English ng business, usually in the form of accounting. Iba po yung English ng medicine and so forth. Lalo na sa academe, iba rin po ang approach. There should be a proper induction program so that the policies of company are clear to all the employees. Kailangan malinaw, kailangan klaro. No? So dito si HR na nagdi-display ng kanyang communication skills. There should be proper trainings. No? Kung hindi naman ganun kagaling yung empleyado or kailangan i-indoctrinate mo, then give that person the necessary training. No? Conducted for required employees like voice and accent training. No? Aha, okay. Maganda yan, no? Yung nabanggit na yan. Voice and accent training. When we have OJTs in the past, usually HRM graduating students. No? So pinasagot namin ng telepono, Be, ikaw muna ang tagasagot ng telepono kasi busy rin kami. No? Tapos biglang sumagot, no? Sabi nga, sino to? Diba? Parang, what the? Diba? So tinuruan namin. No, hindi namin pinagalitan, no? Of course, you will feel a bit, di ba? Kasi kasalanan mo rin yun eh. Hindi mo tinuruan. So, tinuruan namin. Ako ang pinaka-junior nun. So, ganito kasi yun eh. Good morning. This is blank company. How may I help you? Who are you looking for? Diba? Kanya-kanya style yun. Depende sa company. How may I help you? Pwede na nga yun eh. Good morning, AAA company. Kunwari, how may I help you? Tapos sasabihin ng client, pwede kayo ganito. Okay. Wait for a moment. I will transfer you to his telephone, to Engineer Versosa, at ako na po yung kakausap. So, kailangan tuturuan din po. I'm not sure bakit hindi niya na, siguro naparelax yung OJT, but it happens. But as much as possible, minimize the errors. Use of simple language, alam na po natin yan. Reduction and elimination of noise levels, it's already a given. Now, active listening. No? Listen attentively and carefully. No? Iba po kasi yung hearing sa listening. No? Yung hearing kasi, naririnig ka lang niya. But what if he or she is not listening to you? Diba? There is a difference between listening and hearing. Yan, no? Active listening means hearing with proper understanding. Naririnig mo pero naiintindihan mo. Yun po ang listening. By asking questions, the speaker can ensure that his message is understood or not by the receiver in the same terms as intended by the speaker. No? Kasi kung naririnig mo at naiintindihan mo, pag meron kang gustong i-query, i-clarify, madali po ang transition. Yun po ang active listening. And emotional state is a given. No? You should be on a normal mood at the very least, if not happy. No? Kung galit ka, palipasin mo, no? Wag mong ibubunton yung galit mo sa audience. So during communication, one should make effective use of the body language. No? Meron mga nagta-training ng ganyan, no? Na kasi minsan there are people who speak well but they're not having good, 'di ba, physical movement, no? Baka mamaya magaling ka nga mag-speech pero ganun ka naman ng ganun, 'di ba? 'Di ba? O nagkakaganon ka, 'di ba? So as much as possible, just remain neutral. Use your hands here and there, pero hindi naman yung tipong gumagano-gano ka na. Uh, for example, if the conveyor of the message is in a bad mood and then the receiver might think the information being delivered is not also good. No? Nakakaapekto po yung mood ng nagsasalita. Okay, yun nga, nabanggit na natin, simple organizational structure. As much as possible, 3 levels, 4 levels. Wag na po yung 6, masyado na pong mahirap. No? Avoid information overload. Managers ought to know how to prioritize their words. No? Siguro ang ginagawa namin dito, no, is kung ano yung priority. Ito muna yung pag-usapan natin, priority. Pag na-accomplish na yung priority 1, doon na tayo sa priority 2. Hindi naman po kasi nauubusan ng trabaho. So you should balance it. Give constructive feedback. Avoid giving negative feedback. No? Kung magbibigay ka man, just illustrate, no, ano naman yung dapat niyang gawin. The contents of the feedback might be negative but it should be delivered constructively. No, hindi yung lumalabas na parang may personal kang galit na sa tao. Constructive feedback will lead to effective communication. No? Kasi minsan pag negative feedback, minsan iniisip ng empleyado pinapersonal mo siya. No? Ano lang, walang personalan, trabaho lang. That's constructive feedback. And proper media choice, alam na po natin yan. No? Managers must properly choose the medium of communication. Simple messages should be delivered orally. No? Usually sa trabaho, ganun po. No? Pag merong iuutos, usually oral lang po. So you have to take down the notes. No? Pag hindi mo parang ginagawa, that's the time they will do the written. Leleteran ka na nila, so to speak. Use of written means of communication must be encouraged for delivering complex message. Kung talagang masakit na sa ulo o mahaba-haba, komplikado, detalyado, then that's the time you will resort to using the written communication. Memo, notice, and the like. And the flexibility in the meeting of the targets. Ito medyo mahirap-hirap lang ng konti. But for effective communication in an organization, the managers must guarantee that the individuals are meeting the targets on time. No? Kailangan ma-meet yung targets. There must be not much pressure on employees to beat their targets. Let's go to part 2, which is coordination. Maiksi lang naman po. Our quote of the day is from James Mooney, and according to him, as coordination contains all the principles of organization, it will likewise express all the purpose of organization, insofar as these relate to this internal structure. So, what is coordination? It is linking with separate units of an organization for the purpose of achieving a shared objective. So what are the types of coordination? Dalawa lang po. You have the hierarchical, which is different layers of management coordinate with each other to supervise and monitor the performance and outputs of all members of the organization. Sa education, usually hierarchical lang ginagamit. You have the academic coordinators. Or in senior high, you have the strand coordinators, but depende sa setup ng organization. And the cross-function. So I experienced both, to be honest. In cross-function, in addition to coordinating messages with their own department, managers must also coordinate with heads of other departments. So, kinakausap ko po lagi lahat ng department. The purchasing, the accounting, even the design team. And even the legal department. Pati si boss. Ano ba yung dapat nating itackle? Ano yung mga deliverables na kailangan? Ano yung mga kailangan nila sa akin? Di ba? But usually, pag cross-function, ano yung kailangan ko sa kanila? No? And that's it. No? So, balikan lang natin. Medyo detalyado lang. Yun nga sa hierarchical. No? Merong may mga stages po yan. No? Different layers of management coordinate. No? So, let's say, kung ka sa taas, you have to coordinate with the bottom and the middle levels of the organization. So, cross-function, horizontal po usually. So, that's it. So, thank you. Any questions? You may PM me. And as always, walang forever, pero may forever Zosa. Goodbye, everyone.